Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, Season 3. Let's rewatch it for a second time and see what comes out of my face.
It's literally marriage. Me and her are at a point right now, like, we will have incredible days. And for some reason, I'm taking little things and I'm blowing them out of proportion and I'm overreacting and I'm causing just little arguments.
Yeah, so upon rewatching, I'm noticing more strengths this time in Matt. He is identifying, as he has before, that he causes a lot, if not all, the conflict by blowing things out of proportion. He will see little signs of rejection and cheating in Colleen and will run with it and then get upset and hurt and angry and leave and be intimidating and aggressive in his language. And so he recognizes that, and that's huge. When people exhibit abusive behavior and they're able to say this, I have a much better prognosis about the future, not only for the victim, of course, in terms of not being victimized, but also for the perpetrator in their ability to figure out how to get their attachment needs without resorting to intimidation and harm, which will, of course, often result in the attachment figure, the victim, either distancing themselves in their mind or leaving you altogether, which he doesn't want, obviously.
Like, I don't know why, dude. I literally don't know why. But I love this girl. She's an absolute sweetheart. I feel like I'm supposed to be single. I don't know how to fight. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to argue. I run away, bro. And you know this. Literally, I'm called a 2-date Matt.
Yeah. And it's interesting to think maybe this was part of the reason why his first relationship, his first marriage didn't go well. Of course, he's not to blame for her infidelity, but maybe he has some experience with it. I'm guessing that the pattern was present prior, and he doesn't want to do that again.
Because I've had 1 or 2 dates and I've run away.
You've gone through this process in your life. Marriage in general, right?
And she fucking
At the end of the day, right?
She fucking played me.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
You felt like you were fucked up.
Yeah, he still has feelings about it, obviously, which is totally fine. He might have that kind of hurt and anger for the rest of his life. Nothing wrong with that. And by the way, this is indicative of avoidant attachment style. This attachment style that is typified by running away from relationships. Also having a lot of insecurity. People often equate avoidant attachment with not caring about attachments. If you're preoccupied and you have an avoidant partner, you often will interpret the avoidant partner as someone who doesn't care about closeness, doesn't care about empathy or nurturing or being involved, being connected. But nothing could be further from the truth, because for the avoidant person, they're just as terrified and scared and hurt as a preoccupied person is, to the same degree, of course, but they deal with it by masking it to the outside world and even to themselves. So they come across like they're robots, like they don't care, but underneath it all, they deeply, deeply care. But they often will suppress, and then it'll explode in anger and control, jealousy, running away, that kind of thing.
Nice folder.
It's a nice folder. Maddie. Maddie, I do.
Okay, yeah, well, we know. She says I do, and there she is saying I do. In the moment, I was surprised, I remember, but now it doesn't seem like such a surprise.
And the comfort level that you gave me in the natural and just allowing me to become vulnerable again, it speaks volumes. I love you to death. Absolutely, I do. I want to marry you. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh my God. Rewatching this season gives me more hope and a better prognosis for them. Of course, I can't know, but I remember at the time thinking like, oh no, and then at the reunion, but I think rewatching it, there's a lot more positive signs that he recognizes what he did and that his issues are his and that he gets triggered and that he distorts things. He said that a number of times to a number of people. I have a much better feeling. I remember having a really great feeling about Alexis and Brennan, of course. Of course, I have no idea. I mean, who knows what's going on behind the scenes. And I remember being like, ooh, Colleen and Matt, really? But rewatching it, I have a much better feeling about their relationship. Now, again, they could be horrifically problematic behind the scenes. They might divorce tomorrow. I don't know. But at the very least, the the view as I'm viewing it, I feel better.
I do not.
It's so interesting seeing these altar scenes, knowing what I know now, or at least the speculations about these two having maybe after this point or before this point had conspired together to fake that they were in a relationship when they were not. And he is potentially a shady individual. I don't know. The allegations are that he's a shady individual and is a cheating sort of person, and that she is either unaware of that or knew about it but wanted the clout. I don't know. There are a lot of allegations, but it's interesting to rewatch this altar scene with all those allegations in mind. Again, I have no idea if any of those allegations are right, but I don't know, it's just interesting.
I do not.
Yeah, it's interesting. At the time, I figured they probably both knew that they were going to say no, but after hearing their interviews and especially the perspective from Nancy's side, it does seem credible that she thought he was going to say yes. Bartiz certainly gave her enough reasons to believe that he was going to say yes, and that Nancy also wanted to say yes. It's not often that I think at the altar there's a true reveal happening. I'm guessing a lot of the couples know, or at least have a strong suspicion heading into, the only other one I could think of where someone was blindsided was season 1, and Kelly and I can't remember both of their names, but the blonde couple, if I remember right, they're both blonde, I think. Anyway, and the woman said, "I don't," and he seemed to be really torn apart by it. And I think we're watching another moment like that, and you see the look on her face. It's just like, wait, what? Kind of a panic, right? She's probably, just imagine that you think, yeah, we're both going to get married, or we're both going to say I do, and then all of a sudden, I don't, and you have to, like, your whole world has to be shifted in that moment. Like, wait, so what do we do now? What's my life? It's
I do not.
And I will say that Bartiz seems to be, and I know what happens after this, approaching it in a pretty cold-hearted manner. I mean, not cruel, but seemingly not really fully appreciating what was happening. I think that Bartiz thought, well, I'm just playing the game. We're playing a game, right? This is a reality TV show, and he didn't stop to think, I wonder what Nancy is going to go through because of all this. And because if he had, I think he would have been different. I think he probably would have told her beforehand, or at least not given her a lot of reasons to believe that he was going to say yes. He claims that he inadvertently led her on, but when you add it all up, it doesn't look as though it would be reasonable for someone in Bartiz's shoes to believe that he wasn't at least dropping some hints. I think that he thought there were moments that were more ambiguous than they actually seemed to Nancy, like that note he sends, let's effing do this. I think it's rational for someone to conclude that to say that isn't a clear indication of saying yes. But when you add up all the different things that were happening up until this point that Nancy disclosed, and I think Bartiz as well, it makes sense that she was thinking that he was going to say yes. So yeah. So I'll point out that he was not very considerate. And, I think that's consistent with his behavior before this and even after the season. I think he's generally a good person. I think he probably has a normal range of empathy. I think that it was a weird situation. He's on reality TV. He might not be used to really thinking about these sorts of things, considering other people's feelings. It is something that I've talked about, I think, while watching the show, is that we have this notion that somehow once you're an adult of legal age, you're 18 years old, your development psychologically and morally is at its end. And that is not true. We know scientifically that development morally and neurologically And intelligence-wise, a lot of things are continuing to change, which makes sense. It's not like some arbitrary line in the sand that we identify legally, because there's nothing biological about turning 18. It's just this year that we just pick, that we now say you're legally an adult. And so it stands to reason that for Bartise, I think he's mid to late 20s, I imagine, that he's still developing, not only neurologically, but also just experience. For me, what I will say about my own moral development and people around me, friends that are my age, is that we had the same capacity for morality and ethics and compassion and empathy in our 20s, but we lacked the experience to apply that empathy and compassion to other people because we didn't know that they were suffering. We didn't understand what they were going through. The more suffering you go through, the more suffering I have been through, the more I am able to predict and understand and feel other people's suffering and pain. If you would have told me in your 20s that your dog had died, I would have been sad. My entire life I've loved cats and dogs, but I've never been responsible as a dog owner or a cat owner until I was in my 30s. And so it wasn't until then and had to put an animal down, had to be in charge of that or had to make that decision myself, had to be there. It wasn't until after that, I mean, from my memory anyway, that when I heard about other people's pets dying is when I would really feel it. And to this day, someone will tell me about it. I was like, oh boy, and I can exhibit that empathy and understanding and compassion and attention much more readily, much more naturally than I could prior to that. Even though I had the same amount of empathy, the same amount of love for human beings, but I hadn't been through suffering myself. And so it's possible, and I think the way Bartise comes across, I think there's a possibility that he hasn't really suffered in enough circumstances to truly understand or predict what Nancy is going through in this moment, is my guess. Meaning that Bartise has the ability to care, has the capacity for empathy, and has the capacity for care and nurturance, but just hasn't suffered in this way so that he would be able to predict that she would suffer at all, and also to what degree.
Fuck would do all this for? Jeez, fuck would do all this for?
You want to talk about it here? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's even smiling. I mean, maybe he had reasons to believe that it wasn't a big deal for Nancy, but I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
So are y'all dating right now?
Yeah.
Look at that! We split them up on the couch.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But there's a chance that all of this was manufactured, or that Raven was being tricked the whole time, or they were both tricking everyone, or he was cheating and wanting to get into a polygamy situation. I don't know, obviously, but there's a lot of allegations going around. The roller coaster that the viewership went on with Raven in the beginning was seemingly the consensus was a lot of people didn't like her. And then Raven redeemed herself, and then really redeemed herself at the reunion here. Everyone loves a good love story. They seem like a sweet couple, but it's a reality TV show in quotes, and we don't know what's really happening apparently. And then all these reports start coming out, and there's all these different things people are saying about what they were really doing behind the scenes, at least after the season. Don't quote me, but one of his partners, he at least had two, if not more partners, and a woman came forward saying that she was in a relationship with him throughout the show, before the show, during the show, after the show, and still in a relationship with him. And then Raven posted something saying that the relationship was over or something like that. I know there's a whole timeline there, but it was just interesting to see this in that light.
Money-wise, ready to give up on our leases, like we weren't there yet.
I guess I'm trying to understand that because normally when you combine one rent, that seems
Oh, well,
So one of us would have had to cancel one of our leases if we wanted to move in with the other one.
yeah. And I was with roommates, so I would have screwed over some people. So
Knowing what we know now, Colleen claims post-season interview that her demeanor on the show, and she seems less cowery than I remember. There are moments where she's like this, but there are other moments where she doesn't seem that way at all. But according to her, she was being attacked online and bullied. People saying, "How dare you think you're better than Zeneb? You're ugly. You're da-da-da, you're da-da," and you're just thinking, my God, people, the internet people, whoever's doing that, just stop it. Just stop it. Why? Stop it. If there's a God or fairness in the universe, you're going to get yours one day, and you don't want to bring that upon yourself. I don't think I've ever said it before, but so she is now, they're talking about the fact that they don't live together, and I've already been over how this explanation doesn't make any sense to me, but it doesn't matter because their explanation doesn't have to make sense to me or anyone else. It just has to make sense to them. But I think they do live together now. I'm not sure about that, but she was interviewed over Zoom on another YouTube channel, and he seemingly was he was walking around in the background and was seemingly maybe, but that might be in the situation where they're mainly staying at his place, but she still has her. Anyway, point is there's also this element of his body language isn't helping his situation. The hosts asked very easy questions around, they didn't really go after Matt and his behavior, and they talked about how everything's been great and they've had little conflicts here and there, but nothing severe, nothing like they did before. He didn't take full responsibility for his behavior those few times. He said, yeah, during the show, we had our ups and downs, instead of saying, well, really what he said on the show, which I imagine is still in him to say, which is, I perceive things wrong. Little things will happen and I'll just blow them up and I'll get upset and completely freak out about it. So he didn't say anything even close to that, which makes everyone worry as to whether or not he doesn't still see it that way, because it certainly looked that way. But yeah, I've said this before, that behind the scenes, there might be a lot of really problematic things happening, but it's just hard to tell. And you can't look at body language and know things about what's happening. I know people are tempted to do that, but there's no way to do that. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.